Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 3PL Summit. I'm Thomas Watson, trucking expert here at FreightWaves. Super excited to be diving in with Ed Stockman, CEO and co founder of newtrul. If you don't know about them, they're a logistics tech startup. Check them out. Going to be talking a little bit about today on how technology is going to be increasing the quality of transactions in the spot marketplace. And as a little bit of background, of course, the spot market is normally considered the Wild West, and the experiences may vary. So, going to dive in, see what tech can do to make things better. Ed, welcome. A pleasure to get to talk to you and find out a little bit more about your company as well as your technology.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thomas. Super happy to be here today.
So, first things first, for folks who aren't as familiar, talk a little bit about newtrul as well as a little bit of your background and history.
Yeah, so newtrul's mission is to increase the quality of transactions in the spot market, and we see a ton of bad actors, fraud, fake postings, bait and switch models. The list goes on and on of folks that leverage the spot market for different ways that aren't always best for the industry and the marketplace. And I have roughly 15 years of experience in the freight brokerage world. Um, Came up using a lot of different tools and trying to book and find carriers in many different ways, and saw a better option in the marketplace. And of course, we believe that in order for one of these solutions to truly exist, you'd have to be Switzerland, and that's really where the name newtrul came from. But we are developing tools and integrations to help supply and demand connect in a way that revolves around quality and integrity.
And currently, speaking of the integrity part, the integrity of data is a big challenge for spot market transactions because oftentimes it's purposefully or unpurposefully, falsified. Whether it can be origin and destination, actual buy rates, commodity information. Some people don't include any of the information. How big of a challenge was it? Looking into when you founded the company, what are some of the opportunities? Because it felt like when I was a broker and a carrier, there sometimes you wouldn't even figure out the day it picked up that could have been incorrect.
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity is again moving away, transitioning away from the traditional posting model in giving folks the autonomy to post whatever they want wherever they want. And again, that goes back to bait and switch. Let's just get a bunch of calls for this particular load, whether that's a high rate, whether that's 30 miles away, 60 miles away from where the load is actually picking up from, whether it's a more desirable destination. And let's just get a bunch of inbound calls and navigate the spot market like that and try to quickly cover the load. I think the easiest kind of low hanging fruit out there right now is to really leverage integrations to understand the actual details of the shipment that the broker has. Let's understand what their internal target rate is that a carrier rep is allowed to book the load for, and if a carrier is interested in booking that load for the target rate, why not just give them the autonomy to click book it now and digitally book that load? So give them the transparency, give them the opportunity to look into that TMS, into the load details without necessarily picking up the phone and having to talk to Bob at the broker about all of those load details. So it's really about integrity and then giving the carrier speed to book.
And looking at the platform itself, the challenge is some brokerages by size, some of them at a certain amount have figured it out, others haven't. What's kind of, in your experience, been the sweet spot between when you're looking to partner up with brokers? How many millions of dollars do I need to be before I can either think about, do I have my own platform I need to integrate, or should I work with a third party and just use my TMS because I don't have the technology, the resources to build my own stuff out?
Yeah, so we see kind of three different buckets, if you will, of brokers, and it's pretty closely correlated to size revenue per year. For example, the brokers that are between, call it 5 and 30 million, um, they're just looking to survive and advance. They want more freight. They need carriers. They may not have the most robust database of carriers, so when they go to conduct a load lane history, um, it's pretty limited results. So they require third party tools to go in and help them build up this carrier network. Um, they're not necessarily that interested in digital bookings yet. If it helps bring capacity into their network, great. But a lot of those folks, quite frankly, they're not able to spend thousands of dollars a month on all of these different tools. So um, we see a lot of um, willingness to advance there, but those businesses, especially in markets like this, are struggling, and um, they typically live out of their TMS and leverage their TMS in every way that they possibly can. They're very committed to that TMS, especially given the cost of TMSs these days. The mid market brokers, call it 30 to 100 million. These are folks that are really kind of split mindset of they're either really interested in investing in scale, or they're really interested and invested in hitting their monthly numbers. And those two concepts very much may be conflicting at times. For example, a carrier rep who's incentivized to make an additional $25 on a load versus the other mindset, why don't we just spend the extra 25 bucks and book the load in 2 minutes and move on to the next load and develop a relationship with that carrier and try to reuse and repeat our business. And um, then of course the larger brokers over 100 million, they're finally starting to get into this mentality of we will never have 100% digital bookings on our proprietary software. Let's partner with some third party folks, and wherever we could go ahead and acquire that supply from, so long as there's a low barrier to entry and a low cost to serve, we'll allow carriers to book our loads on other platforms. So it's the range of adoption is all over the place right now.
I think that's a great point to bring up because when we look at the 3PL space, we forget that it can be just as fragmented as the trucking space. We've got the haves and the have nots and the eventually once near the middle side. Thinking about that and personnel. I used to remember you'd hire some people to fill the seats. You'd hope they get 3 to 5 loads booked per day on average. You try to figure out your head count. Is this something where this technology, especially in like a down market or when markets are changing, is this something where instead of just overloading your headcount, you do these partnerships and you decide, well, I'm going to work more on the tech component. That way, at least I have additional capacity instead of having to do the layoffs and stuff that oftentimes occur whenever you realize your volumes go down and then your margins constrict.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's always brokers specifically always seem to be chasing something. Like there's very few brokers that are that proactive, where especially in today's market, they don't have to worry about finding supply, or they don't have to worry about keeping bad actors out, or there's always another problem that keeps coming up and surfacing in the brokerage world, and whether it's compliance or margins or the cycles of freight. Um, it's really important that brokers understand how to de-risk and prepare for 6 and 12 months down the road. I think most of the folks that I talk to that are building technologies out there today are doing so in a way that there's a fairly low level effort to get integrated. Most of the TMSs are doing a pretty good job of integrating quickly with new up and coming providers. So um, I think it's more about uh, what your goals are as a leader. Are you more proactive, and do you want to lower your cost to serve? Do you want to get into digital bookings, and do you believe that is going to be a requirement for your business in the near future, or are you purely trying to survive and hit your numbers next month? And um, we see a constant pull between those mindsets, especially in down markets like right now. Um, it's pretty easy to cover capacity. You can post something and get a lot of calls because carriers need that freight. So it's not necessarily top of mind, but when we remind people of what happened 2 years ago, um, folks tend to get a little bit nervous and want to be proactive, especially when we know that it's cyclical and we know that it's inevitable that it's going to happen again.
Well, I think that's a great point with behaviors, especially carrier reps. If you come in, I always used to joke that for carrier reps coming in a down market or an up market, their behaviors will be completely different. And oftentimes, when it changes over the course of years, it can really freak them out. Is that something where you found out with getting using these platforms, having third party platforms where I can post my buys, post my target rate, somebody else booking it? Is there a challenge with getting the carrier floor and the people who are working with carriers on board to help embrace this technology and use it instead of looking at it as, well, I could have got that extra $50 and now I can't?
Yeah, so it's not always necessarily about the cycle as much as it is other details like incentive plans and how these carrier reps are compensated. And there are certainly times when where carrier reps at these brokerages are certainly incentivized to chase that $25, regardless of the cycle or the market. And in other cases, we've seen some of the bigger brokerages, especially over the last 5 years, tell their carrier reps, like, this isn't necessarily a margin game anymore. This is about digitizing the transaction. And we want you to push all of your bookings onto our platform or onto a digital platform where rather than negotiating with that carrier over $25, give them the extra $25, but only if they come into the portal and they book online. So what that starts to do is it starts to incentivize the carrier rep for different behaviors where I'm not necessarily trying to negotiate over that $25 as much as I am just trying to get a digital booking. And I think those brokers will be pretty well positioned for the next cycle where they have a group of carriers uh, that habitually go onto their website every single morning to find what they're looking for. And that's kind of the race in the space right now is not only who can have the most carriers, but it's more about daily active usage, and it's very similar to what we've seen in technology over the years. There's a user metric that everybody looks at, how many users are signed up for your network, and then there's daily active users around how many of those are actually users and coming back day after day. And I think that that's the race in the space at the moment.
I feel like we're going to be like social media. How many daily active users are we looking at? That's such a great point though about the $25. I like to harp on that because for my experience as an account executive, sometimes in a split model like a Chicago one, you'd have someone decline. Oh, that's $50 higher. I don't want it. Then the middle of the day comes by. Now we're stripping out the load, which is all hands on deck to get it. You know how much money we spent by pulling about 15 carrier reps to all start calling on anyone who's on a load board? We probably spent $500 worth of, actual costs of employee work as well as the cost of missed bookings to save an extra $100. So that's something I like to really say about the technology what y'all are working on, because that's almost like what you want is instead, let's get them on the platform. Let's do that. And the speed of it saves money to make more calls.
It's the price point that we're entering right now for some of these digital tools is frankly not even comparable to the scenario that you just described. I mean, most brokers that we see, especially in the mid market, that $30 to $100 million broker, most of them are spending $100 to find a truck. And when that's 50% of your margins on a load that that doesn't even include keeping the lights on or the chair that you actually physically sit in or the computer, like that doesn't include any of that overhead. So when you're looking at some of these tools out there available in the marketplace today, the unit economics don't even compare to that of a human. So it's when you describe those types of scenarios, we love that because it happens every single day, and we're sitting here saying there's a better alternative.
And looking at moving forward, integrations, third parties, TMSs, do you see right now situations where even customers, large shippers with their own internal load boards are looking to use third party platforms? Because I remember back in the day when I was an analyst, it took a lot of effort to get on like a TMS, like a transplace TMS that's managing a Fortune 100 shipper. There's a lot of work to get to that level of access. Do you see customers now kind of warming up to this idea of, well, maybe I should also think like a broker and, push this out there and see what the market has if they're approved to work with me?
Yeah, certainly we get a lot of interest from shippers that are looking to connect with capacity, and that doesn't necessarily mean carriers directly. They may be looking for a better way to connect to their brokers, and especially if their brokers, for example, are neutral customers and they're already going into the neutral platform. How does that broker not only find capacity but also connect to their shippers as well? So we see a pretty large opportunity in the broker space, not only to help brokers cover loads cheaper, but also find loads more effectively. And that's by aggregating a lot of their shipper portals in one place. And it's a tricky equation to navigate for us at the moment, because we certainly don't want to start connecting shippers directly to capacity to bypass or disintermediate the broker. That's certainly not our objective. So what we are doing and what we are seeing more of is there's a way to involve the broker still, and that means connecting the shipper and the broker and being able to help them transact more effectively in the spot market.
Perfect. And if folks want to learn more about Neutral, sign up as well, whether it be carrier, broker, shipper, just try to do, help with the tech stack. What's the best way to get in contact with y'all?
Yeah, best way is our website, www.newtrul.com. Click and sign up for a demo, and I know our sales team would love to give you one.
Ed, appreciate the talk. I'm very excited to see what Neutral is going to be up to as well. Going to keep an eye out for these developments, and hopefully we can finally bring some order to the Wild West of these load boards.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas. I appreciate you having me today.
That's going to be a wrap for this fireside chat, but don't touch that internet dial. We're going to have a lot more folks as well. And if you do miss this, you can always catch us at tv.freightwaves.com. I'm going to have it posted up, as well as our editorial staff often write articles. That's going to be it, though, for this one. It's been an absolute pleasure.